All right, new location in my bed. I have my laptop with me. DJ Roomba is cleaning the house right now, so it was noisy and I was feeling like being lazy. I went to the gym this morning. Now I'm just vibing in bed. Anyways, I decided to make this video because I'm going to start responding back to people. I said I'm going to try to respond back to all the comments I got. Because again, when I mean, if you couldn't tell, I get very inspired very easily by myself. But when I receive engagement that invokes me to a state of inspiration, I go to town. I have so much fun. So that's where these 12 for 12 came from. But anyways, with inspiring so much creativity and receiving so much inspiration, I want to acknowledge those people personally by writing them all, trying to respond to as many as I can. But again, when I get a lot of comments, because I have emails too that I'm getting. So it's hard for me to do it on my phone all the time because my wrist and my thumb gets sore. Like my thumbs get swollen if I text too much or respond back to people too much. And I feel like I'm long-winded, so sometimes I get real in the depths. I love exploring other people's worlds. And so I finally decided, because my curiosity overwhelmed me, because I really wanted to know the story behind how Orfield Lad's grandfather, her name's Emma, okay, y'all, like, sorry, I'm trying to keep people anonymous because I want people to be able to, like, step forward to, like, associate with me if they desire. But it's just, guys, it's too much. This is a stranger that I met that works at Orfield Laboratories, okay? I wanted to hear the story about how her grandfather had the idea to correlate furniture to sound. And so because of that, I decided to reach out because I want to receive an invite to be able to go play at Orfield Labs when I desire, just to like come observe them and just to come see what they're doing, because it's like a land of whimsy and wonder. Like they're literally innovating to like extraordinary novel levels, and I love perceiving it. So I just want to come hang out and vibe sometime. So I'm trying to get an invite to hang out and vibe. Okay. So I wrote this. Good morning, Emma. I'm trying to get better at sharing my thoughts and experiences of exploring existence, especially when my immersions involve novelty. I do enjoy learning from perceiving new paradigms. However, in order to expand beyond the thresholds of my own ignorance, I require contrast. So this is my attempt to create an expanded learning opportunity for myself. Because again, I'm trying to get invited. Like, you know, I don't want to work there. Y'all, I don't want a job. I love my job. But I do desire to sometimes take field trips that, you know, just to come vibe. For free. Or even possibly paid for. Wouldn't that be nice? I've completed my cognitive reflections on my recent trip to what is defined as Minneapolis, and I wanted to share the aspects that perhaps involve Orfield Laboratories endeavors. I honestly had no interest in going to Minneapolis because I don't enjoy cold climates, but I'm thankful I coincidentally picked it because of what I perceived specifically at Orfield. I naturally find everything I experience as extraordinary and reverent. However, what is occurring at Orfield Laboratories is truly unique and innovative. The fields involving STEM could certainly benefit from understanding the cognitive framework that is openly utilized at Orfield. Anywho, I'll start with the anechoic chamber, that's the silent room, because it does seem to be what is most fascinating to human curiosity. Oh, Snickers. I accidentally clicked out of it. I'll pause there to talk about it, because the anechoic chamber, the silent room, they have the Guinness Book of World Record for it. People are drawn to that aspect of them, but that's just like a glitter toy, a glitter thing. The true depths of what they are doing there is way better than that room, way better. But they're utilizing it to the maximum capacity that it could be utilized. Because to be quite frank, if you look at the construction of it, right, it's very rudimentary. They even state like this thing been around since like the 60s, 70s. It's a very vintage architecture that is being utilized to the maximum of its capacity right now. But the other things that they're doing there, guys, that is where huge innovations are just like bubbling at the surface, just like screaming to be like just like let out and publicized. It's so extraordinary. Okay, anywho, that's why I'm starting with the anechoic chamber, because everyone likes the anechoic chamber. So I'll start at the surface layer. Anywho, I'll start with the anechoic chamber because it does seem to be what is most fascinating to human curiosity. I will say, when you offered Michael to show me the room instead of him during my tour, I debated chiming in to encourage him to accept your invitation. However, I was enjoying the dynamic too much to interfere. Because on the tour, she came in coincidentally and lingered and introduced herself. I believe it was because she overheard things I was saying, because when she walked in. Because you know how you can perceive when someone's kind of remaining in an auditory realm, but doing busy, nuanced type things that aren't really, that seem like busy work, seem like distraction, like background noise. Okay, she was doing that because she was very curious, and I could tell. And so I wanted to give her what her curiosity was seeking. That's why I sent this email. Because, and again, she walked in, and that was when I was going to go to the room. And I was getting the tour from Michael, and she says to him, well, Michael, I can take her back there and show her the pink noise machine. And he was like, no, I can do it. I can talk about it. And he's like, oh, you can talk about all the nuances of the pink noise machine and thing and the room. And he was like, yeah, I can do it. And it was funny because she was trying to get him to be like, hey, oh, okay, hey, pick up on the vibe, yo. I want to go back there with her and explain my perspective on how it's being utilized. And he just didn't get it. It was so funny. Anyways, when I first entered the room, Michael turned on the pink machine. It reflexively reminded me of the concept of a white noise machine, so I pondered why the label was changed to pink. It was obviously different from a white noise machine because of the amplitude and frequency of the sound. However, pink invokes a feminine symbolism, which is often correlated to solace, comfort, nurturing, and love. Perceiving the sounds of the pink machine also further amplified the symbolism of feminine associated features to include the subtle yet calming resonance that is commonly experienced in nature. After experiencing the chamber along with pondering its construction, I realized the brilliance of the approach of the pink machine in addition to the physically immersive experience in the room. Because if you go into the room, you're in complete void and darkness. I talked about it. It's void of sound and it's suspended. It's dual suspended. The room itself is on airplane coils and an eye bar. But then inside the room, you're on a trampoline of springs in the middle of it. And then I said, can you perceive where I'm going with this and why your study in PTSD is innovative and novel? The room and how you're utilizing it is creating a physical experience where a human literally is provoked to a state symbolizing being in the womb. The womb itself invokes the perception of genesis, transformation, safety, innocence, etc. For a human who is desperately seeking the echelons of understanding of their own life's opportunities that are often defined as PTSD, you have the potential and framework to provide explanations that remove the requirement for healing, because once understanding unites with awareness, it is realized nothing was ever fundamentally broken nor lost. You're basically giving others a chance to experience a rebirth and thus a new perspective of how to perceive and understand their sacred opportunity for life. Anywho, that's just surface layer, because the science behind what you're doing for those labeled with the title PTSD is quite extraordinary as well. The environment simply allows what is defined as the conscious mind, which I'd argue should be called the unconscious mind, to become quieted through destructive interference of wave mechanics occurring at the quantum level. This allows what is defined as the subconscious mind to be perceived with more clarity because of the mechanics, again, occurring at the quantum level. Like convergent wave patterns, right? It amplifies a signal that is often subdued or considered noise. Everything fundamentally moves, so to become aware of the movement patterns is what permits greater capacity for explanation and thus thought. For those experiencing what is defined as PTSD, they are essentially maintaining a looping movement pattern around experiences they have yet to understand. When a human is gifted with a major learning opportunity, the conscious mind oftentimes doesn't understand the nuances, so the opportunity gets defined or labeled as trauma. And how does the subconscious ensure the conscious mind doesn't forget the opportunity? By invoking emotional responses so the experience gets stored as memory, just patiently hoping and waiting for understanding to be achieved. The largest puzzle pieces in a person's life mustn't be forgotten, and the most efficient and easiest way to ensure this occurs is unfortunately through what is defined as fear. Again, what is defined as a subconscious utilizes physiological changes to ensure the human's conscious mind doesn't forget their puzzle pieces. I personally dislike the definitions and terminology utilized to describe the full capacity and availability of human cognition. For some odd reason, science and medicine have classified the subconscious as inaccessible to everyday existence and utilization. It naturally creates a wall for creativity, innovation, discovery, and peace to propagate across 8.1 billion lives and this beautiful blue sphere labeled as Earth, because their logo is a circle. So I basically took their logo and made it into a 3D structure to be like, hey, I can perceive your idea and what you're doing here, and I just made it you aware of the reality that you have created. Although I did find the anechoic chamber fun, I was actually more intrigued by the reverberation chamber. There are a lot of wonderful implications as far as explaining the nuances of quantum phenomena that science is currently struggling to understand and grasp. Can you imagine if humanity actually understood how the origin of all movement occurs and behaves? A lot of mysteries and unknown perhaps may stop being defined by words such as miracle, delusion, or impossible. Speaking of impossible, I did have a question I was hoping you can pass along to your grandfather regarding a story Michael shared. Obviously, it's impossible for me to understand the nuances without further explanation, and my curiosity has inspired me to movement. Michael mentioned your grandfather started as a human of some sort involving office furniture, and one day he had the thought of exploring how the furniture can be marketed from the perspective of sound. That is a very atypical and thus extraordinary cognitive jump to occur with thinking about furniture from the context of sound, especially from someone who doesn't literally construct the furniture. It's equivalent to the concept of trying to sell furniture as it relates to taste, which I'd argue is potentially lucrative. On the surface, which giggly I define as a conscious mind, it would appear irrational, yet this is clearly an incomplete perspective because of what has been created from his idea. Hopefully you can perceive how incredible that moment of thought was that occurred in your grandfather, and I desired to hear the story of how the idea came about. Michael unfortunately couldn't provide that story, and after much thought, I ultimately decided to attempt correspondence in order to satisfy my curiosity. My theory